This is the Discuss Metal Podcast with Josh and David of the Showdown. Hosted by Dan Terry. Presented by DiscussMetal.com.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Discuss Metal Podcast. My name is Dan. I'll be your host for this evening, or any evening that you're watching or listening to this podcast. It's pretty much always going to be me. If it's not, it's some kind of imposter. You're on the wrong page. You're on the wrong channel. So tonight I've got two very special guests. I've got Josh and David from the Ultimate Showdown. I'm sorry, just the Showdown.
Love it.
How you guys doing tonight?
Good, man.
Good.
So it has been, how long has it been? I should have checked this before we did this, but it has been 2 years since we had David on for, how long was that podcast? Like 2.5 hours.
Yeah. It was it was long. I actually started off, when we started the podcast, I said, this is going to be the longest podcast you've ever done.
Yeah. It was definitely one of the longer ones. I think the longest one we did was like 3.5 hours, and that was us talking about the As I Lay Dying stuff. So yeah, we had to talk about the albums, and we had to talk about it. So, but I'm super glad you guys came on tonight, though, because I've got a lot of questions, and I've been privy to some information that I know about now, but nobody's going to know about until they're, watching this or listening to this. You guys are doing stuff.
Maybe.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we're doing Furnace Fest, and we're starting to, just kind of jam and see what happens. But yeah, Furnace Fest.
That's cool. Are you guys excited? Did you guys go to Furnace Fest last year?
Dave did, didn't you? Did you? I didn't.
Yeah, I did. I went to Sarah and I went to Furnace Fest, and it was incredible. Yeah. I mean, it was a great festival, and I enjoyed it so much so that we already had hotels and everything picked out before we were even asked to play, because we were planning on going again.
Okay. So is that good?
Yeah.
I didn't actually get to make it last year, which was a huge bummer because I had planned on going. I did all these episodes leading up to Furnace Fest and, talking about all the bands that were going to be there. And then the festival came and I had car trouble and money trouble and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, I can't go. So then literally every person that I interviewed that I was like, yeah, man, I'll see you at Furnace Fest. I start getting text messages like, are you here? I'm like, no, I'm not here. So you guys say that you're thinking about jamming and, seeing what happens. Is that a result of being asked to play, or is this just kind of a icing on the cake, or is it just a timing thing?
Yeah.
I mean, it was, go ahead, Dave.
I mean, we've always talked, we've been in contact here and there on text threads, but I think about actually playing music together, it definitely was a catalyst.
That's cool.
I mean, for the most part, I mean, I think we always talk. It would always be awesome to play, but it's definitely a pretty awesome reason.
Yeah, for sure. So did Chad just call you out of the blue and be like, I need you guys to come play, or?
No, one of the guys that is one of the promoters, Ryan Luther, just emailed me out of the blue.
Okay.
I couldn't believe it. Sent over to the guys, and it took a while. I think everybody had mixed feelings, and I didn't expect that to be asked at all.
Yeah. Oh, it's super cool. I mean, there is sort of, I know whenever we talked, before on the show, you were talking about yeah, man, if the opportunity's there, or, we ever, decide that we want to get together and do something, that was going to happen. So I like to see that sort of beginning of a story, and then, it actually end up coming to fruition, because, this is kind of an exciting time. And the thing about Furnace Fest that I found the most interesting was that it seems like it's a very nostalgia goggle sort of fest, like just sort of like how do you get a dude my age to come out and see bands that I would have gone and seen when I was like 19 or sort of thing.
Well, music has changed so much too that, a lot of these bands are like, there's no way that some of us are going to be able to be like as heavy as some of what's going on right now, or like some of what's going on right now. But, it's a lot of it is for, middle-aged guys or approaching middle-aged guys who used to live for this kind of thing. So it's going to be, for me, it's going to be interesting because I've been all the way out since like 2010 or so. So
sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, it should be sort of a blast from the past, especially one of the things that I heard the most from people is like seeing guys come out and like, they'll be like, hey man, I saw you, 10 years ago at, such and such club. Yeah. And you're like, do I remember that person? Do I not remember that person? And then it's like, oh yeah, no, it's this one guy, but he's aged like, like 10 years. So are you guys doing anything as far as playing? Are you guys doing anything special as far as like set list, or is it going to just be a combo of like everything? Or
it's sort of a mix between like the songs that seemed to do well live for us in the past, even if they weren't like necessarily the ones that did well like on Spotify or whatever radio rehablers had. But stuff we enjoy playing and stuff that seemed to get a good reaction from all of the records. Really, we're going to try and hit, I think, all four of them. I think
that's cool. Yeah, because I know that there was sometimes when they've been having people play, they've been having them play like an entire album from beginning to end, or doing a lot of that stuff. But I guess that's just up to I don't know too much on the side of how it works as far as how they like if they have any direct say in what the bands play or don't play.
Yeah, well, this is going to be like original lineup, but I mean, none of us are super interested in just doing the first record.
Sure.
And every record was so different that it's probably all going to come across completely different. So I don't know. Yeah. We'll find out. That was kind of the fun thing about Shows for us in the first place, is it never really sounded like the record.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, it's exciting. I am going to make it down this year. I promise. It's not going to be one of those like weird things. That's one of the things I'm most excited about. But, as far as stuff like this goes, with there being such a gap in time between, what are you guys the most excited about as far as the possibility of doing new stuff? Not necessarily like, tell me exactly what your plans are or anything like that. But like, are you guys just excited to kind of be getting out again? Or is it going to be something that, like just a regular appear? Well, I guess you answered that already when I asked it earlier, which was, I'm sorry, guys. I was at work a really long time today, so I'm choking a little bit. What are you guys most excited about as far as this announcement and the future of the band in general?
Well, I mean, for me, it'll be interesting to be on stage because, like I said, I've been all the way out for 12, 13 years now. But I look forward to getting in a room with the guys and just playing. Like I haven't sat down and played guitar with a drummer, period, in over a decade, much less with this group of guys where we first, like, I've spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours in a practice space and on stages with these dudes to just kind of see how it feels and how it fits. And if that spark happens again, I mean, we're all real different people, obviously, but to see if we can create something again that feels like it's worth, I don't know, that's the part to me that's exciting. A show is whatever. But the idea of being able to create with them again is what excites me personally.
Yeah. Well, speaking of being excited, my favorite thing to do on this show is just to talk about music, and so I'm gonna do the generic thing where I'm like, what have you guys been stoked about as far as music? In the time period since the band was active. Doesn't have to be metal. Doesn't have to be anything. It can just be, the things that you've been most excited about music. Either lately or just over time since the last time you played music?
When we were doing it, I wasn't really a huge fan of what was going on in modern metal to speak of, especially a lot of the core stuff.
Yeah.
I tended to be more into, the death metal and the European side of things, but man, there's a lot of really good American metal bands that are going on right now that have really surprised me with, part of that was being able to let go of the music as identity for me. But there's a lot of even like deathcore bands and stuff like that. I've been like, man, these guys are really, really good.
Yeah.
Just some of that new wave of, and now of course every name is escaping me, but pick out just one in particular. It's not, although the new Abiotic record is really rad. New Deeds of Flesh record is so good. God, what's the other one? I don't know. Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. As far as like heavy, which I think I kind of maybe even touched on it when we talked last time, but didn't get into metal truly until after we stopped playing.
Yeah.
I mean, where I was like, I listen to it now more than ever, really. But I mean, I really like everything that, like, Mutoid Man is like big fan.
Yeah.
I really like them. A big fan of them. And some of the like the cheesier throwback like stuff like Striker and
Striker's surprisingly good. I don't usually even go that old school, but like it's so good.
Yeah. Yeah, I like they're very tongue in cheek, but they've got some pretty crucial riffs. I like them a lot. But as far as heavy stuff goes, I would say that's the most. And Gojira, I love them.
Oh yeah.
Those are like probably the three things that I really enjoy heavy wise.
What's your favorite Gojira record?
Mine, I like the one with like Magma, the one that came out in 2016.
The kind of more melodic sort of.
I do. Yes, I really like that. But I was able to go back and listen to the one because Josh, which one was it that you guys always played? The one with that riff that's like bang, dum, ding, dum, dum, dum.
Yeah, that was the first big one. Whenever they hit big, I can't actually off the top of my head remember the name of the record, but it was the one where
Serious?
I think so. It's where they started. They did some shows with Lamb of God and started, all the big names in metal kind of co-signed on them.
Yeah,
Lamb of God and Mastodon and all that. It was that record.
Okay, I think that might have been The Way of All Flesh.
Yeah.
Because Randy Blythe actually did a guest vocal on one of the songs. I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had like Toxic Garbage Island, and that was when they started throwing like electronics and stuff into like putting like electronics on his voice and stuff like that.
And I was just like everybody else. That little pick squeal thing he does, where he rakes up on the strings, that is so heavy. I still don't know how to do that, but I've seen there's a million bands doing it now. They figured it out. Like he totally pioneered that thing. And
it's
just
crazy.
A good like band, like the way they hang together and just get in the groove is. There's no real way to explain it, but man, does it work!
Yeah, it's crazy how a little thing like that too, like something like a very very pronounced pick scrape or something like because it's always like especially like with, on my main podcast discography discussion, we just review music. You know what I mean? We'll like sit there and listen to all of a band's records and kind of go over like what we liked, what we didn't like, yada, yada, yada. And we're always kind of looking for that like pursuit of like what heavy is heavy what the deathcore bands are doing, where you're just like, you're playing an 8-string guitar and the strings are almost hanging like off of it.
Yeah.
Is that what heavy is? But then you've got a band like Gojira that'll come along and like sort of redefine how people think about, heaviness and, even with something like I'm not saying just the pick scrape is the only thing that makes it heavy, but like,
yeah, well, a lot of it is that drummer truly Duplantier. He reminds me of Igor Cavalera. He's not the most techie drummer in the world, but the way he like is right there in that pocket. It plays a little bit tribally too, like Igor did. That just and it feels like he hits them like 5 times as hard as anybody else. He doesn't. I watched him play, but it feels like he hits the drums 5 times as hard as anybody.
Yeah, I've seen videos and like I wouldn't necessarily say he looks chill, but he kind of does. Like he's just like
Well, he filled in playing drums for some not the Tonight Show, but something like that with Seth Meyers on that show.
Like the Late Show or something.
The Late Show or whatever. Yeah, and he was just like, and it still was like, man, that's kind of impressive,
Yeah. You're hitting it hard without hitting it hard.
Yeah.
One of the things I did actually this morning when I got to work before they told me to, quote, turn that shit off. I listened to Backbreaker and I listened to Chorus and they actually, some of the dudes at work dug Temptation because all those dudes just listen to like whatever's on the radio. So they were like, okay, yeah. Just like more of this. My favorite record is probably Backbreaker. But the funny thing is that what you guys were doing was so different from what was heavy then, you know what I mean? Like, because a lot of the bands that were out there, they were doing the core thing. That's like when deathcore sort of came in. And like, I mean, obviously you guys had the screamed vocals that people would, was it ever kind of like frustrating that you're like trying to do this like original metal thing, drawing from a very big pool of different influences and ideas for people to just be like, oh yeah, the Showdown, they're a metalcore band.
Oh yeah. Like that's not what we wanted to be at all. I mean, it's not like we never heard any stuff like that. Like I was a Lamb of God fan and, I'd been a Converge fan coming up and all that other stuff. So I knew what all of it was. But we didn't want to be another, and As I Lay Dying or a Norma Jean or anything like that. We wanted to be something very different from that. And we always felt kind of like the fish out of water thing, but that's just where we were, musically.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting because I know whenever I was talking to David a while, I'm sorry I keep going back to that episode, but we talked about so much stuff. And I think the really interesting thing about the origin was that how you guys kind of started off playing punk rock, more so than metal. How does that transition work? Like, do you just was it just one of those like throw a metal riff into a punk rock song and then like you write another song and it has more metal riffs in it, or like?
It was a lot of cajoling on my part. I mean, the band was a punk band originally, and I joined knowing that it was a punk band, and I liked, ended up liking a lot more than I initially did the punk stuff. But I all along had been a metalhead, and I just dug and kept bringing metal riffs and kept bringing them until eventually they started letting me play a few. And like our drummer at the time didn't really want to do double bass or anything like that, and core was like my in to get from punk to hardcore into kind of metal stuff. And we slowly got it's really when Andrew joined the band that I was able to be like, okay, let's play a death metal riff.
And then, so David, you're just like, yeah, I guess I'll just like growl over it.
I don't know. I mean, because I was into a lot of like I got into like, Under Oath and Beloved and Norma Jean and some of that stuff, like kind of, I would say bridge the gap over from punk rock to just going to Cornerstone and seeing some of those bands. Like it made more sense to me. And then I guess like, I just remember I didn't realize I could scream. And then once that happened, it definitely seems like it just kind of gradually started to become more and more. It really was like a slow crawl. And I was on that the last time I was listening, because I listened and skimmed through some of the when we were talking, and I don't know if you listened to it, Josh, but if you remember that van that we had from Audio Adrenaline.
Oh yeah. I'll
never forget it. As long as I live. I don't remember if you were driving the van or if you were up there, but you got this Pantera tape out of your backpack and put it in. And I mean, I think we were literally driving back. We had just played with Reliant K or something.
I remember that
crazy.
show. Yeah. Yeah. I remember.
Dude, I'd never heard. I thought he was joking.
You never heard Pantera before?
No, I thought he was kidding. I literally thought, I was like, I did not. Are you really into this? And now, I mean, of course, they're like the bomb. Of course, like right. I love them. But yeah, I mean, I just, Josh, he was always into metal, always had metal CDs, like from the get-go.
Well, and some of that transition too happened with, I mean, a lot of it went from, melodic punk stuff, because a lot of what we did was really poppy melodic punk, through some of the kind of the more melodic hardcore, but also a lot of it went through the power metal avenue. Specifically, Travis Arr, the guitar player, really liked a lot of like Avantasia and Ed Guy and stuff like that. He really did.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a route in for me, guitar wise, because he loves like 80s metal. Fucking forget about it, man. Poison, Warrant, Rat, all that stuff. That's his jam. So that was kind of a way to kind of, and that's how you end up with a record, sort of like Temptation too. And all the, the melodic bits that are on chorus. A lot of that was me compromising between, because I wanted to sound like Testament, Decapitated, Children of Bodom, Pantera. Like that was, but he had a little more melodic side to him that we, came together on with the 80s metal stuff and all that.
That was something one of my coworkers commented on when we were listening to Chorus, where he was like, Yeah, I like that. I like that last song that they had. That was all, it was all melodic, and it was all, there was a lot of singing. Like, trying to remember exactly which song it was, but it definitely. I'm actually, you know what, dude? It's 2022. I can literally just look and see what song it was. I'm just gonna do that. But yeah, it's funny because then we went into one of the heavier songs, and he was just like, is this the same band? And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I don't know. He's like the other one had like all this melody. Yeah. So it was Proclamation of Evil's Fate, which is like starts off with that really melodic, sort of dueling guitar sound. And then then it goes right into Dagon Undone after that. And he's like, wait, like suddenly we're like in death metal territory here. He's like, dude, this band is all over the place. And I was like, I was like, if you listen to the later records, like it's a little bit more like they go with an idea and stick with it.
Well, and Proclamation was one of the earliest songs we wrote for that record, and Dagon was the very last, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So that makes some of the sense too.
Yeah, those just came almost from a completely different place, but yeah.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, Travis wrote a lot of Proclamation, actually, probably more of that. There was that in one other song that he wrote the majority of on that record. Dagon I came with that song pretty much fully done, and that was me just worshiping Decapitated, essentially.
Yeah.
And not being
you
as
definitely
good.
Hear that. I don't know, man. I love that record. Like I told David, like the first time I'd heard it, a friend of mine bought it at a Christian bookstore, and he like didn't even listen to it on the way home. He's like, he calls me up. He's like, dude, I have no idea what this sounds like. He's like, I literally just saw the cover artwork, and I need you to get in your car and drive over here, and we're gonna sit down. We're gonna listen to it on my stereo. And we did. I mean, we listened to the whole thing like 2 or 3 times, because at that time, this was still like, there's just still a little bit like the heavier bands were like, I guess what they call it like the new wave of American heavy metal, like that 2003, 2004. You had bands like As I Lay Dying and like Killswitch and Shadows Fall and stuff getting popular. But like as far as like music that you could buy at a Christian bookstore, like it was absolutely mind-blowing for us, because we were like, oh my God, like we this, because like you had heavy bands before that. But everybody was like, you had to pick. You either had to pick a band that was all brutality all the time, or you had to pick something like, no offense to this band, but like something like a Project 86 or a POD or something like that is like, that was as heavy as that stuff got, unless you just wanted to listen to stuff like Zao, which I had no problem with and still have no problem with. But we were like just blown away by the mix of like melody, heaviness, and then also that there, you had extreme vocals as well as like sung vocals, absolutely, because this is like, did Demon Hunter come out first? Not that they sound even remotely the same, but like
their first record was out before we put our record out anyway. I remember seeing in a Christian bookstore.
Yeah, it would have been but I mean, as far as like bands that could like sing and scream, and I don't mean like scream and then emo sing or that sort of thing. Like it was like real like metal singing with extreme vocals. And of course, before we knew how to play instruments or knew anything about music, that's all we focused on was the vocals.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, absolutely blew us away. And I think what's really special about that record is the mix of different ideas. You have, like you said, there's like that decapitated worship in there, but then there's also influences from power metal. There's influences from melodic death metal, like Scandinavian, not At the Gates, because that's what all the other bands were playing.
And that was on purpose too, because I love At the Gates, damn it. But like there were too many bands that were playing At the Gates rips and breakdowns at the time.
Yeah, you can't mix those two. I don't know, you guys might have made a lot more money if you'd have done that. I don't know, but
probably would have.
Yeah.
But there were bands doing that better than we would, and there were 1,000 of them. There was As I Lay Dying, and there was As I Lay Dying Junior. I mean, we went on tour with Winter Solstice, and that was like the most. I mean, again, no problem with the guys; they probably have no idea, but like, that was basically just an At the Gates riff and a breakdown over and over and over and over again the whole time. Yep. Everybody was doing that, and I went out of my way to avoid that. we wanted to sound like an actual metal band.
Right.
Because, the bands I liked, that even the Christian bands like Embodiment, that was an actual death metal band.
Oh my God. Yeah, dude.
And they blew my mind. Yeah. Although, I don't know, man, the Famine brought it back. They were so good.
That's one of those bands that because I remember hearing, Embrace the Eternal back in the day. And that record is like literally a riff buffet.
Dude, I played that record nonstop for the better part of a year. Like just every other CD was just back to Embodiment.
Yeah. I had it on cassette for the longest time.
Yeah.
Besides Travis and Josh, Andy Godwin is like one of my favorite guitar players of all time. I didn't even realize it until after I was done with playing the Showdown. I mean, just listening to the Embrace the Eternal and those Famine records, his riffs are so sick.
Dude, he's unbelievable guitar player, like unbelievable talent. I'm bummed that I never got to meet the guy and I never got to see Embodiment or the Famine. There's like one of the very few that I really cared about actually seeing in that scene. But I mean, I think I met Mark and Chris somewhere along the way at some point, but I never did meet Andrew or get to pick his brain about guitar playing, because he thinks about the guitar a lot more different than people think he does. It's different.
He's one of the few players, I hate to say this, in that scene that you can tell it's him. Like you can, know, like straight up, like either he's had some involvement or something. It's funny, I saw the Famine play live. I think they were with, it was like Stronger This. It was like Living Sacrifice and the Famine and Demon Hunter. And that was only like 4 hours. That was in Rolla, Missouri before the tornadoes happened and all that. But like, it was really, it was like being in a trance watching the Famine play. I couldn't believe it. Like whenever I saw him live and like how much, but like the record sounds amazing anyway, but like how they sounded like beyond what you'd hear on the record, just having the full band in the room, it was a totally different experience.
I wish that I had gotten to see them, and I guess Embodiment is doing new stuff now or something. It's some strange artsy thing. I've only heard like little bits of music, and I don't guess I understand. But
so there's two things. There's Hope Deferred, which is Andrew's band. And that's like a death metal band that I know they just upgrade. They uploaded recently like it's like a Living Sacrifice cover song from one of the old Living Sacrifice albums. It's like death metal. It's great. And they put out like a 3-song demo. And so that sounds like death metal, like old Embodiment. And then Mark has his own project called The Embodiment of All Famines.
Yeah.
And it's like an art. I haven't listened to a whole lot of it because like, I guess it's something that you have to have like all the source material or something like in front of you in order to, like you can't just stream it on Spotify or something and like get it entirely. So it'll be interesting to see what that turns out to be. But I interviewed Eric Shirey, who used to own Pluto Records down in Texas. And this was the weirdest experience for me, where he's like, hey, God, what was it? What did he say? Eric's like, oh, by the way, Andrew wanted me to tell you hi. And I was all like, I've never talked to him before. And he was like, oh no, he I guess he checked out one of your podcasts, and he likes that you like Suffocation or something like that. And I was like, dude,
Andrew, I like Suffocation too.
Right. Yeah. Like, let's get him on here. And, like, I'm like, where's that interview at? Like we need to sit down and talk about this, talk it out. I'll invite you guys to come on. Like, just be like, we'll just like
I'm trying to pick that dude's brain.
Yeah. Pepper him with questions. If you guys get too into the guitar talk though, I'll just be sitting there like, I don't know what these guys are talking about, but it's great.
I hit up Eric Shirey on Facebook a while back.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was at Furnace Fest too. I was trying to scam my way into doing guest vocals with Hope Deferred. It's my dream. I actually probably went a little overboard trying to find Andy Godwin.
You go to his house, but then he's not there.
Can we just do one song? Because I listened to this podcast he did, and he was like only into like guttural death metal vocals.
That was As the Story Grows, with Brian Patton,
Yes, and I'm like, I'm your guy. That's all I want to do anyways. Let's do it. I even found, I really tried hard to find him and then I gave up.
Like I was going through his mail and I just couldn't.
There's nothing good in his trash. I don't know.
Yeah, that's good. Every time I try to come to his house, he's not there.
It's like, dude, just send me one riff and I promise.
Yeah. No, definitely amazing. Yeah, dude, I can't say enough good stuff about the. Because do you guys have the old Embodiment stuff, like the before Embrace the Eternal?
I did, yeah. I don't know if I do anymore, but I did at some point.
It's like a really hard to find CD. Like if you go on like eBay or something, it's like some asshole selling it for like $300 or something, you know?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
You know,
I had a friend back in the day who was like, before MP3 trading was a thing, like he was all over all like the solid state bands, the Cornerstone scene, all that. He had like VHS tapes of like past Cornerstones and like,
Jesus.
If you could find it, he found it. And that's actually how I found the majority of any kind of like underground Christian metal stuff.
Yeah.
It was through this dude, Michael Hamrick. What up, bro?
Yeah, what's up, man?
Shout out. add us on social media. No.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, like, comment, and subscribe because it helps the algorithm. But yeah, I like that stuff is good. I remember like loving that. I loving that first because that's the first I heard. I was like, they had a song called "Dismembering Death" that I had.
Yeah,
somebody burned me a CD back in the day that had that song in it, and like they didn't tell me who any of the bands were, so it was like 55 minutes of just like brutal in your face death metal. And like, it was all incredible, but I didn't know like who to check out or, you know, where to find more or any of that stuff. But that, I think like looking back on, if I can ever find that CD, I'm going to try to like figure out who everybody is now that I've had a few years, you know, to do so. But, yeah, I think that a lot of this stuff is important, and that's part of why I like doing these interviews is I kind of getting a historical, like where everybody came from, you know, musically. So I guess I'm going to do the generic podcast interviewer thing and be all like, what was your first heavy record? Like the first record that you were like, okay, I checked this out and this is my thing now.
Dude, it was sad but true. Metallica, that song, and I will never, as long as I was in a guy from youth group, we were doing some youth group event and I was in his car and it was a silver tracker and he put it on and it just dun, 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 and I thought that dude must have like 16 strings on his guitar. That was the heaviest thing I'd ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
He had to be 8 feet tall and I was like, and it just that was it ruined my 20s, all of my 20s. That moment.
It's sad but true.
It is.
I feel like David's got something much more embarrassing.
No, I mean, truthfully, probably.
No, I started with Morbid Angel. No.
Yeah. I mean, you know, other than like Def Leppard and so I listened to a lot of really wacky stuff. And I think before I got into punk rock, like the very first rock CD or whatnot that I bought that wasn't like, you know, rap or something weird or Eagles or something like that was like not even rock, but it was like Ben Folds 5, whatever, Never Amen.
Okay.
And I just couldn't believe how nasty they were. And especially like watching a video, like I had taped them on TV and this dude is like, you know, smashing his piano with a stool and the freaking bass player's tripping out, pulls the cable out, is like making these noises. I'm like, this is wild. And I really got, do I?
I forgot. And I forgot you were such a big fan too. But man, I forgot Ben Folds was pretty punk.
Yeah, I didn't know that because all I could think of when I think of Ben Folds is that like
a brick song,
brick in like yeah.
Well, I bought it because of that song, and I was actually on a date with this girl that liked that song, and I just bought it to impress her.
Right.
And then I started listening to it, and they're like, "It's pretty gnarly." I mean, I still like them. I was a massive fan though, but that was like the first thing that I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm into this." Like, I think I'm maybe. You know, Next or whatever kind of lame R&B I was into in high school. It's like went down that road, you know.
I don't know if it's the first actual CD I ever bought, like not tape, but actual compact disc I bought was Weird Al fucking Yankovic.
Hell yeah.
Like,
I think that's all. I mean, everybody's got some Weird Al CDs, you know.
Dude, he's coming to Pelham, Tennessee, plug, playing in the cave. It's like
Hell yeah.
$500, but I really want to go.
$500.
He was legit talented, though. I mean, he's like a real talent.
Yeah. I mean, he's the most diverse musician in the world, right?
He might be. He's like Prince, but funny.
Yeah. And he's like a PhD, you know, like he's like very, very, very like, this is really weird because I'm just like, he's actually really, really, really smart. Well, I think like most musicians are smart, like he's enough to like know how to, you know, minus maybe some of the hardcore bands used to play at my local. No, but he's like, as far as I understand, like classically educated and like classically trained musically. And like, he's just ridiculous. Like some of the stuff he plays on the accordion is insane. Like when you really
he can play a lot of instruments too. Like he's a really, really musically gifted guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and definitely need to go see Weird Al again. I don't think I've seen him since I was like 8 years old.
I'd go see him tomorrow.
Yeah. It would be awesome. I love his polka mashups, especially that new metal one. Good God.
Angry white boy polka. Cut my life in two pieces. This is my last piece.
What a bro.
Did you guys ever get into new metal?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
God, yeah.
Sweet. So you guys are honest.
Oh, dude, Limp Bizkit, Korn. I thought, like, I remember being into Korn, and I bought that Limp Bizkit CD, and I was like, nah, man, like, Korn invented it, Limp Bizkit perfected it, bro. It's never going to get any better than that. Like, dude, that's it for me. And this is after I'd already heard Pantera. I had no excuse. Like, I was a longtime Metallica fan, big Pantera fan, and I was like, oh, dude, this is it right here, man. Went down that rabbit hole, down Coal Chamber and everything else for years.
Loco.
Yeah.
I need to get Dez on the show at some point. I need to like stalk him on Twitter or something and be like, hey,
he did his band now did part of that Ozfest we did in 2007. And man, everybody was always talking about, Devil Driver. And everybody was always talking about what a nice guy he was. I just saw him in passing. I never talked to him, but everybody's like, he is the coolest dude.
Yeah. Yeah, a buddy of mine had him on. Well, no, he was on Brutally Speaking before I was, so I missed the boat on that one. But yeah, dude, it's funny with new metal because it's like kind of coming back in a way. Like, you know how like
it is.
Yeah, you know how hair metal got really popular again, and it's sort of more or less stayed there because like bands like Guns N' Roses can still tour and like make tons of money and like sell out entire venues and stuff. But new metal's kind of doing the same thing. I know Limp Bizkit just like announced a tour and put out a new record and
well, and there's new bands too. Like there's a lot of in my Spotify queue and stuff. There's new bands that are doing like rap metal stuff, and some of it's I don't like it, but like some of it I can see that it's legit that they're doing something interesting with it. Like there's a song called it's got a bunch of X's in it, but I think it's supposed to be Tooth Grinder.
Okay.
And it's Unity, Texas, and Notions, and somebody else doing a song. It's such a good song, but it's like legit rap and like these really angular metalcore riffs. And man, it gets me hype. I'm not gonna lie, it's like real good.
Well, it's like what we were talking about earlier. How metalcore for the longest time was just at the gates plus breakdowns plus maybe a guitar solo if you're lucky, you know. And then, or then you have somebody in there, Howard Jonesing it up, like,
and you really, get like a little noodly tap riff or something like that with some harmonies to show that they knew what metal was. And
yeah. But then you've got these guys that are like combining metalcore with like new metal and it being like, because that's whenever I ask the question, like, what have you guys been excited about, like in music? I would say for me, even though nobody asked me, that's kind of it, for that, as far as stuff that I'm excited to see, like how far it can actually be taken, like.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea is the thing. And a lot of these, like a lot of the newer drummers in some of these bands they really are taking a hip hop influence in a lot of the way that they play. And so I can see how some of it sort of makes sense. There's some band, I can't remember. They don't do it very well, but I don't know if you know who NF is. He's a rapper, just the name.
So I love NF.
Dude, NF is so rad. And there's some band that covers one of his songs, and man, they do a pretty good job.
It's The Animal in Me. Yeah, the band's called The Animal and
Yeah.
Me. I was just listening to that the other day. I liked it. I thought it was a really good cover, but I was kind of like, it's not really him though. Like that was the only.
It makes me want to hear the real thing more than anything else. But it's not. They did it like they didn't embarrass themselves at all. And I would think that'd be the easiest thing in the world to do is embarrass yourself trying to do that.
Oh yeah, they did a cover of Eminem's "Rap God" that was really really good. I mean, the song's deplorable, but their cover of it was actually really really interesting to hear a guy doing like shred vocals, like scream vocals like that fast. In that I couldn't even. It makes my throat hurt even thinking about it. Like just trying to sit down and do that.
Oh, that band, Bro Job.
Bro Job.
They covered that Fantasy song. They're just this guttural, like beat down metal with like these super fast rap lyrics on it. And it's really impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I think Attila's got some pretty legit riffs.
Yeah.
I want to hang out with Franzilla. Like,
man,
that dude is off the charts, man. I'm telling you. I listened to the first time I ever heard this new metal mashup was that record that they put out in 2014. I was going through and just checking out all the metal stuff. I never heard. I couldn't believe it. It's talking about sitting in your basement with crusty Cheetos and like doing all these rap. I was like, man, this dude is on one.
Well, there's that. Who is it? I Am Jake Hill. I guess the guy's name is Jake Hill. But there's a band called I Am Jake Hill where the guy does a fair amount of rap stuff too, and some heavy stuff. That it's all well done for what I don't particularly care for it myself, but it's all really well done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just interesting. I think that, like, though, I'm going to ask a serious question now. Do you guys think that with the, this is a semi-serious, semi-sarcastic question, but do you guys feel like with how available music is now that bands are more free to kind of, because I feel like are more free to kind of experiment with their sound and try new things versus the way it used to be where you put out a demo, you decide what you're going to play. You put out a demo and then hope a company spends money on it. But like if a company is going to spend money on it, like it's got to be like a certain way.
Well, it's in a way, yes, but it's just that the landscape's a little different because like, sure, there's less to lose as far as recording something goes, right? Like you can just throw it up on YouTube or get it on Spotify or whatever. And so you really don't have as much to lose. You can just put it out there and it's the internet. Everything is there for a minute and then goes away is the general way of things. But it was sort of that way in the first place. For us, it was just live, like it would be in the local scene. We would say, okay, well, we're going to try this one heavy song. We know we're a punk band, but what do y'all think about this heavy song? And that would be like the only people that ever heard us. So we had to end up doing that well. So I think there might be a little more freedom in the way that they do it now, but I don't know that there's any less risk of losing what little following you have when you take a chance like that.
That's fair. I think that, there's a certain sense of, I think part of the reason why we're getting kind of sort of these nostalgic sort of returns to is because of sort of the advent of being able to, like what we're doing right now, like bands that like separate, for years can now just jump on a call and like you could like this app that we're using, you guys could get on and jam on that if you were in different states, and like I know that like a lot of bands do that and stuff, and I feel like that's why a lot of bands that have gone away have sort of started to kind of get it back together now, because it's not as much of a, I would say it's a time commitment for sure, but it's not as much of like a travel commitment, have to book plane tickets to go practice with, so-and-so.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting, and I like the idea of being able to do that stuff. For me, like for it to be worth doing, I would want to get in a room with people again, just because that's a very specific feeling for me. And I'm sure it's very different for people coming up now. But for me to be in front of that amp, making your clothes rattle just a little bit and hearing the drums right in front of you, that's a different. And I'm not just some old coot or whatever that things were better in my day. Or I just that's where I feel it personally. So I would want to do that, but there's a lot more freedom to just kind of send stuff back and forth. And if I were doing like a different kind of project, I think that it would be really interesting. But I can definitely see why a lot of other bands are taking advantage of that.
For sure. Absolutely.
Being in a room with people and you can't help but to jam like you can't help but to like move. You feeling it? Like it's just that's great. I love that. I agree.
That was always the payoff for me, is when you feel yourself lock in with the drummer, and then you hear the little accents with the vocals going, or like actually feeling together with the people in the room was that was always the payoff for me, more so than even like, the crowd or the perfect record or whatever else. That was what got me hooked in the first place. I, to this day, will never forget being 17 years old and for the very first time playing with a drummer. Like that feeling.
Yeah.
That was what half my life was dedicated to after that, was chasing that dragon. So that's what it's always about for me personally.
That is a really good feeling, though. The first time, because I'm thinking back to garage bands and stuff that I did, and even recording an album. Like I actually remember whenever I first recorded music, it was the first time I actually got to hear myself, even on tape. Because the downside of being a vocalist in a band is when you're in that practice space, you don't hear anything that you're doing,
No.
until like you buy a PA system or something like that, or can actually be heard. I never even heard myself until like I heard it recorded on tape.
Well, even when you get the PA, you're still fighting the cymbals, and the guitar player's still trying to outdo you.
The guitar player's sitting there for 4 hours trying to find the right tone.
That too. And the drummer's just tink, tink, tink.
Yeah.
Just can't stop fiddling.
You guys want me to do something, or yeah?
Yeah.
But super cool, guys. I'm not going to keep you too long tonight, but I think that the fact that you guys are playing Furnace Fest is super cool, and I'm excited that I'm actually, because I don't think I've ever even seen the Showdown play live. If I did, it was such a long time ago, and it was probably at a festival.
Probably
that the memory definitely needs to be rejogged. So
this will undoubtedly be a very different thing, but hopefully it'll be an enjoyable one.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be great.
And I think it's cool because like the other guys that have never played the songs off Backbreaker, they're like stoked.
Yeah,
I kind of like, I didn't really know, going into what we're going to think. And, Travis and Andrew and Eric, they're just like talking about Backbreaker, especially me and Josh and Eric were on Backbreaker, but I thought it was cool. Like they're like, that's what we want to play. We want to play those. Like we want to you do these. Like, I'm like, cool.
I'm into
that.
Yeah. Making me work harder though, because those are the hardest ones to play. I got to actually get good again.
That record is so heavy though. Like, I mean, it's one of those, because this is I'm gonna pull my poser card. I don't really like the Pantera Southern like groove sound that much as a metal fan. I'm definitely more of like a like Suffocation, Morbid Angel. You know what I mean? Like that's that really, really dank stuff. But I like Backbreaker. It's the only record that I listen to that has any type of like Southern, sort of influence to it because of how heavy it is. I still listen to, oh my God, what is that song called? I Am Vengeance is still like, anytime I'm pissed off, I still like crank that thing in the car. Like, it helps me not actually yell at somebody whenever I do get out of the car,
Yeah, a lot of that probably is because our drummer for that record was a Yankee, so there's a little less of that swamp boogie on that one.
Could have been. I felt a little bit of kinship, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in St. Louis. I think St. Louis Missouri was like very on the line. I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was living in Chicago when we did the record, so that's
okay.
He's from Michigan? Yeah, he was from Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't talked to AJ in forever. But yeah, that whole record was just me and him in Eric's basement. Just him and I together basically wrote the entire record. So we're both very into like the very kind of thrash riff and kind of techie thrash riff. All of that record is like a big ass playing wise for me, just because it's rough on that right hand.
Absolutely. I think that's what I like about it too, is the thrash, because I'm big into stuff like Testament and
yes.
Yeah, and like Testament's still awesome, even after all these years.
Honestly, out of the big four, like I wouldn't go big four. I go Testament. I go Testament for sure over Anthrax all day long. I would go Testament over Slayer for sure, and over Megadeth too. Like I think Testament, Metallica's always going to have a special spot, but as far as like Bay Area thrash metal, like I think it's Testament for me.
Yeah, they've been the most consistent too, even though they were able to change it up. Like hearing Chuck Billy, like for what he sounded like on like the first Testament albums, and then they put out what was that album, Demonic, and then like even Low when he started doing those like guttural
voice
death
of
growls.
The devil himself. God.
Oh my god! Except he's like the nicest dude ever.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Yeah, I talked to him. It was like 2 or 3 weeks. It was whenever they released their new album, Titans of Creation. It was like 2 weeks after the dude got over having COVID, and he's like, "Yep, we're doing interviews." Like, yeah.
And he's a big old barrel-chested like man.
Yeah, he's a mountain.
Guitar player he's underrated as a thrash guitar player. Like people are always talking about, the Gary Holtz and everybody else, which fantastic guitar players, but man, the guy that's been writing, Peterson, is that him? It's Eric Peterson. Yeah, he's been the one that's there all along. Dude, that man knows his way around a metal riff better than just about anybody I can think of, honestly, European or American.
I saw Testament they didn't open for Slayer, but they played at the Slayer farewell tour that went on for like 2 years, until COVID shut it down, but I think it'd probably still be going. But yeah, with that show, I think Napalm Death opened it up, which is always a good time. And then, Testament, I believe Testament came out right after Napalm Death. And then Anthrax came on, and everybody was so not into Anthrax after seeing Testament play that there were people like shouting for Testament to come back out and play more songs. Like everybody was like really, really, really blown away. It was a weird show though, because then like Lamb of God came on after Anthrax, and I was like, it's just weird, kind of weird that you would take a break from like Testament, Anthrax, Lamb of God, and then Slayer. I know it's all about like ticket sales and draw and all that, but like still,
Lamb of God is like they're basically what amounts to the new Metallica, the new head of the big four or whatever, which incredible band, but it is a little bit of a weird juxtaposition to go from all of that. And I know they worship Testament too, so it's a little strange that they would come on after that. I don't know. That's always been the Anthrax Testament thing has always been a point of contention with me and Bruce from Loving Sacrifice. He's an Anthrax guy all day. I'm like,
I know.
No, Bruce, no, you're wrong.
Yeah, but they're also like really like those guys are all very like classic 80s metal, like almost more like melodic 80s metal. I mean, it's funny because the music that they play isn't like that at all, but it's just weird. Yeah, that like he'll just sit there and be like, "Yeah, man, what are you jamming off? Just jamming this new Stryper record," And I'm like, yeah. It's just they're great. They're great dudes as far as sitting down talking about metal. Do you guys have any idea what day you're playing on Furnace Fest? That'll probably be in the Furnace Fest announcement or whatever. But
Dave might don't.
No, we don't. We don't really know anything. Yeah, I think because they were gonna announce us a couple times before this, so it's just kind of like I'm excited to see the band lineup though. Like. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to play, but I'm excited to see who's going to be there because they had some really good jams, last time. So I'm just kind of like wondering who's coming back to play.
Yeah, 100%. Because there's a lot of stuff I got to make up for. The only thing that I think is kind of a bummer is I know the lineup last year was literally so stacked that I would have had to make really hard choices as far as who I actually wanted to go see. Because they had the metal stage, which was with the Plug Your Holes, which is where you're going to see Hope's Wall and Zayo and all of those types of bands. Beloved played, which I was really disappointed that I didn't get to see that. And but then you've also got Stavesacre playing, and you've got all of these. Oh man, they had almost a full emo stage up there. I mean, it was every single band I could think of that I had listened to back in the day. Dude,
they need to bring on 238 back.
Dude, 238. Me and David were supposed to have a 238 talk a while back. Yeah. We were just gonna come on and be like, "Welcome to Discuss Metal." Now we're gonna talk about 238.
We can still do that.
We can still do that, man. The future is bright on that. So I could talk about that band forever.
Noticed a lot of activity on their Instagram, and I'm hoping that they're gonna play.
Yeah, I follow Chris on Facebook. But I'm such a big fan. I never say anything or comment on anything, anything that he said. I'm just like, oh, it's so cool, But I do that with a lot of you guys. But No, it's yeah. I think that if they were going to really pull out something really awesome, I think 238 is going to be would be awesome. So if anybody from Furnace Fest is listening and you're not working on that, start working on that because that's gonna draw some people, or maybe it won't. I don't care as long as I get to see them.
I'm saying I don't care if anybody else is there. It'd be better if you're not. Everybody forget about it. Nobody go see 238. Just
right. It'll just be three dudes standing there being like, "Isn't this great?" Well, very cool. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap for tonight, guys. But I really, really appreciate you guys sitting down and just talking with me about metal.
Yeah,
I'm really excited about Furnace Fest. I am gonna make it out this year, and this is normally the part where I'm like, yeah, I'll have a beer with you guys, but we had a whole conversation about that earlier. So I'm primarily yeah. So I think it's going to be a good year for music, and I think anybody that is on the fence about going to this festival needs to absolutely not be on the fence about it and just pay the money. Get down there, get yourself a nice hotel room early. That's one of the big things. And just enjoy yourself. Be a kid again. So
I know we're rapping, but the thing that really impressed me about Furnace Fest was the sense of community and like how cool everyone was so cool. You know what I mean? Like it was legit. Yeah. It was everything you would hope it would be. Like,
and that's kind of what I was hoping, is it would have that same vibe as it had back in the day, because that's half the reason I would even agree to do it, is just because I do miss kind of that communal vibe that came with a lot of that. Mm-hmm. Just hanging out at the merch table and just shooting the shit with people for a while and not feeling like a weirdo because people are paying too much attention, but like just kind of being there and being with people. Like I sort of miss that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it seemed like a huge community vibe. I feel like such a poser because I didn't go and all that. But even the community vibe too, everybody that was there that knew me would like send me pictures and send, not to rub it in my face or anything, but just be like, oh man, I wish that you were here seeing this with me and, all that. Yeah. So it was definitely a good vibe. definitely a good vibe.
Definitely.
Good people, good times.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah. And hopefully, we'll be able to share some of our jams and for the people that are interested, and I don't know, we'll see.
I think there's going to be plenty of people that are interested, that's for sure.
It'd be cool. Maybe some new songs will come out of it, who knows, maybe not. You never know. You
never know. I mean, we're going to go have fun either way, and we hope to see everybody there, and we might be working on new music, and it kind of depends how the show goes, but I think it'll end up with more coming out of us in the future. And hey, if not, and if you're a band looking for graphic design, you can look at Entropy Hex on Instagram, and I can make some money from you.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, we are in the market for new podcast graphic design, so
hit me up, man. Entropy Hex on Instagram.
Because my man up here has got some real nasty visuals.
I'm all about it. I want something.
Get you a death metal logo.
Yeah, I want something that I can print on a T-shirt that I can then sell and then make up the money that I paid for the design. So
that's all I'm looking to do is pay off that Photoshop subscription.
Oh my god, dude, you're never. Yeah, that's a lifelong debt.
Yeah, I know.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate it. We'll see you guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we will see you guys next time.
All right. Peace, my dude.
See you, dude.
This has been the Discuss Metal Podcast with Josh and David of the Showdown. Presented by DiscussMetal.com.